Wheel of Genre, the show for viewers who are ready at a moment's notice to release the hounds.
Excellent.
Right now, we are reading every short story in Harlan Ellison's anthology, Dangerous Visions, including this one, Larry Eisenberg's What Happened to Auguste Clarot. And indeed, by the end of this story, I am also asking, what happened? I'm Zach, and this week I am really interested in, just the editorial circumstances behind the inclusion of this story. I think it's not a coincidence that it is located at the very, very tail end of this. Something that maybe we can talk about as we get in further.
Of the very tail end of book 2, though, there's more for us in store for Dangerous Visions. I'm Bob. I'm interested in Larry Eisenberg and his style. Here he says he is a humorist, and he started writing funny pieces. Later, he started writing funny science fiction pieces. And I have some very interesting background for him that I want to talk about later that I just absolutely love. But let's talk about the story first. It is such a strange story, and I agree with you. It feels like it does not fit in this at all. It's this kind of detective who is approached because someone named Auguste Clarot is missing, and he tries to get on the trail to find this guy. Nothing is working very well. He goes, talks to one person. Have you seen him? No. He then ends up at a haberdashery, and someone just throws laundry on him. But of course, he's thinking, okay, well, everyone probably knows I'm trying to find Auguste Clarot, so they're giving me a secret. But no, it just turns out it's laundry. Of course, there's a twist with that later. But he then goes to, what is this guy's name, Zach? He goes to, was it A. Sistole on 23 Rue de Day. He goes to this mansion, knocks on the door, and he's thinking, oh no, I hear a dog barking inside. Will I be bitten by a poodle? He goes in. It's very strange at this point. This is when the story totally, I guess, turned on its head. What happens when he enters this house, Zach?
Well, he finds Auguste Clarot, the person he's been looking for, who has been busy creating a formula that will make dogs go crazy with aggression and bite people. So he releases the scent, or rather he has the scent on him, and people's dogs bite him. And he says, and he sues them for money, and he says, it's working out quite well for me. And
I live quite handsomely, he says.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's really it.
Oh
right?
wait, no, there's a great twist. So there's this weird showdown. It's like a Batman showdown where Auguste Clarot says, "Oh, you've come here, and now I'm going to do you in." I guess more like James Bond and the Bond villain.
Sure.
And he says, "Right behind the door, I have my hypertensive bloodhounds. And as soon as I press this, there's all these weird details. This chartreuse button on the door, they're gonna come out and rip you apart because all this time I've secretly been sprinkling my dog aromatic all over you." And then the narrator takes off his pants, wrestles Auguste Clarot to the ground, switches pants with him, and then he doesn't even switch pants. He just takes off his own pants, puts them on Auguste Clarot. The bloodhounds come out, I presumably killing Clarot. I'm not sure if they totally kill him or not. And then his wife, Clarot's wife, mistakes the narrator for Clarot, and then they just end up together. And that's the end of the story. I became the lover of Miss Clarot, yeah.
So I guess let's break down what is really going on with this story, because what we have is it's really genre play, right? He identifies as a reporter, but what he's doing is the kind of hard-boiled detective voice, you know.
We're kind of acting like a detective too.
Yeah. He's going from place to place. He's looking for clues. He's, but it's a send up of the detective, right? It's a farce. It's him mistaking things for clues when they aren't actually there. The laundry incident that you talked about before was a good example of that. But then by the end, what we get is that kind of like villainous denouement. You described it as being kind of Batman. I was thinking James Bond, but this idea where the villain has the hero tied up, and they say, "Well, you're gonna die anyway, so before you die, I'm going to tell you everything." And then, of course, the hero wrestles free and usurps the villain. It's fun. It's fun. That's for sure.
Here's what I think is very interesting in the afterword, because yeah, this story, why on earth does this count as a dangerous vision? I know we've left that idea behind, but he says in the afterword, it may be that, unknown to myself, Auguste Clarot is riddled with displaced symbolism. Perhaps I can't cope with escalated brotherhood in Vietnam, equal but separate mistreatment for men of color, and bulging cliches mouthed in high and low places. Auguste Clarot was a joyful catharsis for me, and I hope for the reader. It's almost a challenge to say, can you find the displaced symbolism? Can you find how this story speaks to our time? Because this is coming out in the heat of Vietnam? That's an important thing to
Yeah.
fact check.
Yeah. Well. Well, I think the key word in that paragraph is it may be that, comma, unknown to myself, comma,
Yeah.
August Claros is riddled with displaced symbolism because I mean, what that is a diminishing statement. The author
Mhm.
doesn't seem to think that there's anything behind this story. Like for him, yeah, I think it's a fun romp. I think it's something
Mm.
that he did to pass the time. I think it's as enjoyable to read as it is to write. But I think that all of those qualities right there make me wonder, why is it in this anthology?
I love what Harlan Ellison says in the intro, too. He says, I did try to reject this story 17 times. And I don't care if I even got Larry Ashmead to Doubleday to also say no to it. And then I finally said yes. So it is fun. I think it's quite fun. We've been having so many violent stories that seem so intentionally in your face. You know, they are the dangerous vision. They're a challenge to everything. And here he's saying, yeah, maybe people can read into it if they really want, but I don't really believe it. And maybe I don't really believe some of these other authors who are saying that they're, hot stuff, that they have
Yeah.
seen through the riddles of our world and are giving you the answer. So maybe he's kind of being a satirist and a humorist. Maybe he's really saying that's the point of a story. It is to pass the time, to have fun, and good luck if you want to find symbolism in it.
I guess what it makes me wonder is, does it damage the overall project for you to have something that feels so misplaced?
I think the project, the more time we've spent away from it now, since we've taken a little break and now we're coming back to it, I love it. I know there's lots of stories in here that are not good, but I think it's so interesting to have someone so energetic like Harlan Ellison getting all of these people together and doing something. And I'm back enthusiastic about the project, even if I get a lot of crappy stories. This is the final story for volume 2, and we're going to go on to volume 3. And Harlan Ellison is going to tell us why this project is continuing. He's going to tell us again, like he did at the end of volume 1, these are all the reactions. People are burning this book. People are banning this book. Everyone says I'm the devil. And I think he's enjoying that. And he knows that it's kind of funny. He knows that he's exaggerating, but I think he's really enjoying this project. So, and I thought the story was kind of funny. You know, having a bunch of bloodhounds
Yeah.
behind your door is very Mr. Burns.
Well, I think what it does for me is kind of swap the focus of it, swap the thrust of the project away from being a kind of like social vision or political vision, or even just like him trying to flip over some tables vision, the way
Mm,
we initially framed it, or rather, we're looking for things to find in it. And I think that what it's turning into is maybe more of like a slice of the time, if that makes sense, like
mm,
an
mm.
archive or a snapshot of the literary, mid card culture of the time. And for that, I think it might just be more interesting that way, to think of it that way.
Contemporary visions instead of dangerous
Yeah.
visions. I think so. Yeah, it is a snapshot of the time. Everyone's trying to break out of the mold that they feel like science fiction or fantasy has put them in. I guess especially science fiction here. Later, when I have my rant about Harlan Ellison, will it be positive? Will it be negative? He says a lot about how much he hates science fiction. He thinks that he is not writing science fiction. He is writing, what does he call it? Fantastical or just fantasy and he compares himself to Kafka. He wants to write like Franz Kafka and write kind of not fabulistic, but just weird fantasy, uh, not science fiction. And he doesn't like being put in the group of other science fiction authors, even though here he's including lots of science fiction authors.
Mm.
But anyway, yes, a slice of our times. I wanted to throw something at you. I think this is so cool. Larry Eisenberg, his who he was. So he was a biomedical engineer. He died when he was 99 years old, and I was reading his obituary because it was in the New York Times. The obituary is so cool. So he died. He was 99 years old, and he died 4 days after his birthday. He died on Christmas Day, and the obituary focuses on, because it's a New York Times obituary, they called him the unofficial poet laureate of the New York Times because he wrote comments on so many of their articles, and he wrote them all as limericks. And I just want you to guess, since 2008, this is when he started. He did one on Obama's Iraq war policy from 2008 to his death in 2018, in 10 years. 13,000 comments, Zach. 13,000 comments in 10 years. And they're all in verse. They're all limericks. And it says, the quote here is, they're all perfectly rhymed. They're metrically impeccable. And they're always germane to whatever is in the news. I'm just amazed that he could do that. And so here's a couple of samples that I thought were pretty great. There were he even did TV reviews. I don't know anyone who has done this many limericks. I think he's probably the king of limericks. But anyway, in 2011, he wrote, "Homeland, with time brought up to date, owes to Manchurian Candidate, is the theme tired and hardly inspired, production and cast are first rate." Then in 2016, when Trump won the election, he goes, "A mauler, a grabber, abuser, a do whatever you chooser, non-thinker, non-reader, a spoiled child breeder, and every trick in the book user." Anyway, so so he just wrote tons and tons and tons of these, and so the New York Times in 2012, because he had done so many but that's probably it is like 6,000 mark at that point. And so they said, "Can you please write a biography for yourself?" And they they messaged him. 20 minutes later, he publishes his biography as a comment in as a limerick. And this is when he's already 90 years old. So he goes, "A nonagenarian, I, as sometime writer of sci-fi, biomed engineer, generally of good cheer, with limericks in ready supply." So anyway, I love Larry Eisenberg.
Okay,
My new favorite sci-fi writer.
you've managed to sell me on him. In fact, you may have
So cool.
elevated him to be one of my favorite authors in
Of all
the
time.
collection. But I
Oh,
just,
okay.
I think that, there's a lot of complicated feelings now because I'm like halfway, I'm like, okay, what is this doing here? And the other half is, how could they not include
Yeah, how
Sweet
could you
Larry?
not? Yeah, after not publishing it, what is it, 17 times?
Yeah.
They finally made right. They finally made right.
That's funny. Well, I want to read. He has a character whose name is Professor Emmett Duckworth, who's like a recurring character that appears in a number of novels and short stories, and he's a brilliant but flawed scientist, daring in his experiments, yet frequently blinded by his own arrogance and overconfidence. So I'm imagining kind of like a Faustian figure.
But all satire, all humor, and probably
Yeah.
full of limericks.
Yeah. I'd check it out. I would check it out.
We should read it back to back with Dr. Esterhazy, some of the Avram Davidson stories about Dr. Esterhazy. I think those would be two interesting characters, Duckworth and Esterhazy, to look at.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what to say other than that we did it. I'm glad we did it. Onward to Dangerous Visions, Book 3.
Part 3. I give 2 thumbs up for Larry Eisenberg.
Yeah. I'll give two hound paws waiting in the
I'll
air.
release the hounds.
Yeah. All right. Talk to you later, Bob.
Talk to you later, Zach.